This year has tested us. As a nation and a university. Yet, we've faced adversity many times throughout our long history. And we're no stranger to challenge. We know that complexity is challenging, but for us, it's inspiration to move forward. Forward in the pursuit of fundamental knowledge and practical solutions, with a sense of service and a quest for equity and excellence. Forward in rethinking our future. Thinking forward, science, democracy, creative expression, data, inclusion, justice, the environment. Thinking together we can do this. Together, let's take the next step. Let this be a year of discovery, a year of possibilities, a year of forward thinking.
Good evening and welcome to Princeton University's Forward Fest and our Welcome Kickoff. This is a first of its kind programming for Princeton and we're so glad that you tuned in. My name is Arielle Patrick. I'm a member of Princeton's undergraduate class of 2012 and your host for tonight. If you're here, you are like me. You're curious. You look around the world and your heart fills with questions. Tonight is the start of our push to explore these questions as one Princeton. We've brought together various members of the Princeton community together to serve as hosts for Princeton's very first Forward Fest. Because at its heart, Forward Fest is about bringing all members of our community together to engage in meaningful dialogue and to start making meaningful progress toward humanity's biggest challenges. So I want you to meet some of them. But first, it's my distinct pleasure to introduce the Lawrence S. Rockefeller Professor of the Princeton School of Public and International Affairs and the University Center for Human Values, and the President of Princeton University, Christopher L. Eisgruber, who has a few words of welcome to us that are tuning in tonight.
It's my pleasure to send you greetings from Nassau Hall and to welcome you to Forward Fest and a year of forward thinking. It's a time when we could all use some forward thinking in the midst of a 2020 that has already been a year unlike anything that I believe any of us can recall. We're confronting a pandemic that has already taken more than 1 million lives, an international reckoning with racism and social justice, economic disruption, forest fires and other catastrophes associated with global warming, disruptions to nearly every aspect of our lives, including the education that takes place here on this campus, and bitter political polarization. But on a college campus and on the Princeton University campus, even in an exceptional year like this one, autumn is a time of new beginnings. It's a time when people take on audacious projects, when they think creative thoughts, when they look to the future. And even as we face these tremendous challenges in our country and in our world, the talent that makes up the Princeton community, the dedication to seeking out the truth, and the commitment to service give me great hope for how Princeton University can help our world to address the challenges and problems that confront it today. I want to thank everybody on the faculty and the alumni community and our student body and on our staff who is participating in this year of forward thinking. And I want to thank you for joining us as part of that year. And I hope that you will take as much confidence and optimism and energy as I do from the discussions you hear as we talk about some of the things that are happening on the Princeton campus that can enable us to make this world a better place. There are extraordinary projects happening all around the Princeton community, pushing the frontiers of modern science and deepening our understanding of the human condition. They excite me about what's possible for the future, and I hope they will excite you as well. I think, for example, about extraordinary work being done by two very recent MacArthur Prize winners, Professor Clifford Brangwyn in the Department of Chemical and Biological Engineering and Professor of Chemistry Mohammed Syed Sayemdost, who are both working on projects that analyze health at the molecular level to understand processes that may lay the foundation for innovations that will improve human health and address the pandemics and other problems of the future. I think, too, about people like Professors Brian Grenfell and Jess Metcalf, who are jointly appointed in our departments of Ecology and Evolutionary Biology and the Princeton School of Public and International Affairs. They work on epidemiology at its intersection with public policy, helping us to understand right now what we need to do to address COVID-19 and what we will need to do in the future to build a safer and productive society. I think about people like Fred Wary and Catherine Eden and Matt Desmond and Alondra Nelson, all in the Department of Sociology, who are analyzing the foundations of inequality in the United States and the world and coming up with practical solutions to make everybody's lives better. And I think about professors like Beth Lou Williams and Rosina Lozano in the Department of History and the Program in American Studies, who are analyzing aspects of American history that help us to understand better the many strands that weave together to create the special tapestry that is this country and to help us forge a new space for civic dialogue in the United States. At the same time, our extraordinary undergraduates and graduate students in departments and schools all around the Princeton community are preparing themselves for lives of service and leadership that will dazzle us and make a difference to our future. I expect that this year of forward thinking will give you plenty of reasons to share in the excitement that I feel about what Princeton University is doing and how it can make the world a better place. I very much hope that you will lend your voice to those conversations and participate actively in them, because one thing we know is that conversations are better when we include participants from a diverse variety of backgrounds and with a wide range of perspectives. So thank you for being a part of this project and this year. Thank you for being a part of a year of fresh imagination, a year of creativity, a year of discovery, a year of vigorous and vibrant argument. Thank you for being a part of a year of forward thinking.
Thanks, President Eisgruber. With that, I'm excited about what the conversations of a year of forward thinking and our Forward Fest will yield in terms of a vigorous debate and new ideas for today's challenges. And you're right, conversations are better when we include a wide range of experiences. That's why I'm happy to introduce a couple of faces you will see during the October Forward Fest programming. Our first session, Thinking Forward Public Health, will focus on how a number of Princeton researchers in various disciplines have pivoted their work to address the specific challenges brought on by the coronavirus. I can't think of anyone better than Dr. Celine Gounder to moderate that discussion. Celine, tell us a bit about your background.
Hi, I'm Dr. Celine Gounder. I was class of 1997 at Princeton. I am an infectious disease specialist, epidemiologist, and medical journalist. And you may have seen me on CNN. I'm a medical analyst for CNN. I'm also the host and producer of the podcasts Epidemic and American Diagnosis.
Also with us tonight, we have Bria Gillum. Bria?
Thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Bria Gillum. I am the class of 2003. I currently live in Chicago, Illinois, where I am a program officer for the MacArthur Foundation's Criminal Justice Program, where I am focusing on addressing the misuse and overuse of jails and reducing racial and ethnic disparities that are present in our local criminal justice system.
Thanks so much, Bria. Bria will be moderating our session, Thinking Forward Justice, in which faculty have drawn from a number of disciplines to discuss the varied approaches they're using to analyze, understand, and critique social policies that play a central role in today's debates about social justice. Our last moderator for our academic programs is Melanie Lawson from the great class of 1976, who unfortunately couldn't be with us tonight. Melanie, a broadcast journalist in Houston, will be moderating our session, Thinking Forward to Election 2020, which is very soon, leaning into the question of election legitimacy and talking with some of our faculty from politics to history to computer science about some of the issues at play this year. Let's take a look at some of the ways the Princeton community has responded, starting first with our undergraduate students. Here to tell us more about getting through this past spring together are Justin Forti, class of 2020 president, and Chitra Parikh, class of 2021, who has been undergraduate student government president this calendar year. Welcome, Chitra and Justin.
Thanks for having us.
Hi, thank you for having us.
So let's go back to the spring. Justin, can you take us back to that moment when you realized that your senior spring wasn't going to look like any that we'd seen before? What did that feel like personally for you?
So when we got the notice about the spring term being so drastically different, everyone being sent home or staying on campus as depending on our situations, I remember that it felt pretty devastating and very kind of like tumultuous. A big part of it was kind of like understanding like what this would mean for most of my class and myself. Like for some of us, we could get permission to stay on campus, but for others, like we can't get that permission. So I remember that in that moment, a lot of my class were definitely very scrambling about. It was a very stressful thing and we just didn't know what was going to happen. I think once everyone did get to their places, either flying home or staying on campus or going home with friends, it became just like a very slow semester. I think everyone was kind of just waiting for the end. Unfortunately, like, it didn't really get that much better as time went on. I think that the big hurrah for us was eventually just being done with our theses and moving on.
But Chitra, you weren't necessarily in that position because you weren't yet a senior and you had really had this role as USG president that people were asking you all types of questions. So what did you need to do first?
Yeah, I remember there was the phase between when President Eisgruber had announced that we would have virtual learning for 2 weeks, and then within a few days it became the entire semester. And I remember at that time thinking about how we're all going home to very different environments. We all have different circumstances at home, and it became a question of how are we going to adjust, but also cope with this uncertainty. And like Justin said, as the semester went on, it became very clear that there was more uncertainty coming. For us as current students, what that looked like was we now were concerned about what the fall semester would look like. We were concerned about losing internships and summer employment. Many of us were relying on that income for the summer for our families or for our own selves. And so that week kind of became a question of what ifs. What if this semester becomes the new normal? What if the fall semester is online? How am I going to adjust? I know personally I'm a design student in the School of Architecture, so I remember thinking, how am I even going to take my classes online? And I know many other students may have felt the same way, depending on what department they're in, depending on whether they were working on their thesis or their junior independent work in a lab or in a studio. And so really that week and the end of the semester became a question about how do we adjust, but how do we reconcile the uncertainty that we're all facing in very different circumstances all over the world, really.
So you, in partnership with the administrative offices at Princeton, really did provide resources and actually answer questions to try to address student concerns. So I assume that some of it was to everyone's satisfaction, and in some cases you couldn't please everyone, but you did a lot to support the campus. So tell us more about when you went to an online fall semester. What were some of the resources that you offered to students and how did they adjust?
I think some of the resources that USG has provided personally was we worked with Dr. Chin over at CPS to create a new FAQ about how CPS was transitioning resources online. And I know we held town halls with Dean Dolan and VP Calhoun to talk about some of the decision-making behind the remote semester, how the university was addressing the impact of the pandemic and so forth. Beyond that, I know that professors have been working with McGraw to, adapt their classes and also think about what aspects of my course work well online and what aspects do I need to either reimagine or remove from my course because they're just not conducive to virtual learning. So those are some of the resources that I can think of. I don't know, Justin, if you have any to add.
Well, I guess resources for the fall semester.
So Justin, so now you're an alum. So maybe a better question for you is, how do you feel the transition went and how did Princeton support you as you went into your next phase of your life and beginning your career?
I think that a lot of us have been feeling things have been slowing down, which is great. So I know that it was a big scramble at the end of the year, even into the summer, where all of these different situations going on in the world, Black Lives Matter, different issues with presidential campaign, which is still going. But I know that a lot of people that I know and myself started to seclude ourselves from like the rest of 2020. So friends that I hadn't heard from or I just couldn't reach out to before, suddenly I'm able to reach out to them and they're able starting to interact with Princeton friends again. I think that's like a good sign that at some point we've gotten past this stage of kind of secluding ourselves from the world and starting to embrace everyone else. And I do see that things are slowly getting better for people in my class. And part of that is just through kind of this support network that we all have set up. I know that multiple Princeton friends are kind of relying on each other to find housing or places to stay and looking for jobs. The alumni network particularly has been amazing. The class of 95, our parent class, has reached out to us and they're really trying to turn on that engagement with my class to help connect us with opportunities. A lot of my year is still looking for jobs, and it's really great to have the alumni network behind us trying to connect us with those.
So it sounds like as you and your classmates aim to find their way and everyone's having a myriad of different types of experiences adjusting to the new age, the new era that we're in, what does forward thinking mean to you personally, and how does that apply to what the Princeton Network should and can be doing going forward?
Do you want me to go? Do you want?
Do you want to go?
I can go. Yeah. So when I hear the term forward thinking, I really think about embracing Princeton's motto of being in the service of humanity. This year has been full of challenges. It's been full of uncertainty. And this is a time where we can all come together to support one another through both collective and personal hardships. So to me, forward thinking is thinking about how we can be in the service of humanity, not just in our 4 years as a student at Princeton, but also beyond that. And, how we can contribute to building a better tomorrow, not just for the Princeton community, but for the broader society as a whole.
Forward thinking for me is really not letting yourself be defeated by everything that's going on in the world. I think right now everything feels particularly kind of bleak and very stressful with the political climate and everything happening. And for me, the forward thinking is thinking optimistically about the future. Rather than succumbing to kind of the thoughts that everything's going wrong, really hoping and looking forward to a future where these things are worked out well, where things are better and we're able to cause the change we want to see in the world. So when I think about forward thinking, that's the main thing I think about, just a better future that's not as hectic as it is now.
Yeah, I think forward thinking has a lot to do with doing the best with what we can and thinking towards a more equitable and inclusive society that we can all do our part to build together.
Well, with your leadership, I am very, very certain that young Princetonians will be in good hands. So thank you so much for all the work you've done to make Princeton and the world a better place. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I really loved their answers and sort of their reflections on what forward thinking means to them. I will say that Justin and Chitra are well beyond their years, at least where I was when I was a recent graduate. So Celine, I'm just curious, what was your reaction to all of that?
When I hear the expression forward thinking, I really think also about the past, our history and learning the lessons from history, our experiences with prior epidemics and pandemics, for example, and planning based on what those lessons have been.
Bria, what do you think when you hear the term forward thinking?
When I think of forward thinking, I think of someone who's a visionary, who is optimistic about the future, who might not have the whole path figured out, but is sort of okay taking chances and understanding that there's going to be challenges along the way. I think of an opportunity for innovation, sort of reflecting on what you've done in the past, what you've seen in the past, learning on those mistakes, and really trying to be innovative and creative about what you can do in the future and beyond.
Well, let's take a look at some forward thinking at work.
The COVID-19 pandemic has really highlighted the importance of academic innovation to society. And Princeton is no different. Our faculty and researchers here at Princeton wanted to figure out ways in which they can give back to society utilizing their expertise. And so many of them reached out to the Office of the Dean for Research to figure out how they can help utilize their expertise to have a positive impact on the global COVID-19 pandemic. The Office of the Dean for Research thought it was a wonderful opportunity to sponsor a new innovation award in this time of critical need. So in this regard, in early spring, the Office of the Dean for Research announced a new innovation challenge, broadly defined, that would have a positive impact on the COVID-19 pandemic. Our faculty were extremely responsive to this call. We received numerous proposals to address challenges related to COVID-19, and we were happy to be able to sponsor or fund more than half a dozen proposals related to COVID-19. Our faculty engaged in a wide range of different topics, whether or not it was trying to screen for drug molecules that would actually bind to the spike part of the protein, or whether or not they were trying to develop new methods to be able to utilize your cell phone to do contact tracing, but also maintaining your privacy, was part of funding that we did here. We also had faculty who went beyond, say, just treatment of COVID-19, but to think about the broader impacts. What is the correct balance between social distancing that allows for safety, but also maintaining a productive economy? What does this look like in the short term, as well as what does it look like in the long term? We also had faculty engaged in research in terms of what would be the impact of people staying at home longer, as well as the financial impacts of losing their jobs on, say, for instance, domestic violence and essentially behavior in general. And so the Dean for Research funds related to COVID-19 was broad-ranging in scope, not only trying to develop new technologies and therapeutics as well as medicines, but what would be the broader implications of the pandemic on human society. That's what I think about when I think about forward thinking, is busting beyond what we think our traditional boundaries are, being optimistic and being solution driven. The one thing that makes us unique and different is really this convergence of the humanities with science and engineering. The fact that we have world-class science and engineering programs within the umbrella of a liberal arts institution means that we're able to put the human experience first and foremost when we think about innovation and entrepreneurship. I'm often asked the question, why now? Why the Princeton Innovation Initiative? And I like to tell people it's really because of our community. This is a bottom-up endeavor. Our faculty are more than ever engaged in translating their research into practical applications. Our graduate students, as well as undergraduate students, are choosing to enter the job market by creating new ventures and developing new technologies that can have a positive impact on society. As well, our alumni remain ever engaged and provide a lot of encouragement towards Princeton innovation and entrepreneurship. So when I'm asked the question, why now? It's really a matter of, why not now? There's never been a better time, as society, in my view, faces the convergence of essentially two, pandemics, one related to COVID-19 and then the other related to the consistent and systematic injustices that groups face in the United States. Now more than ever, the research that we do here, the innovations, the creative thinking and ideas that are developed here at Princeton are needed in society. When I think about forward thinking, I think about being optimistic. I think it means recognizing that as a society, we do face many challenges, whether or not it's the COVID-19 pandemic or the racial injustices. But it's also recognizing that we have the power to make change. It's recognizing that we have the ability to come up with solutions. And at Princeton, in the Office of Dean for Research, we try and bring individuals together to develop those solutions. Whether or not it's establishing new innovation funds or putting on conferences that bring together individuals that help drive change. That's what we like to do. And so when I think about forward innovation, I'm very optimistic. I think about the possibilities. I think about the transformative changes that Princeton innovation can have. I'm undeterred with the challenges that we face because I think about the talent and potential that we have here on campus to address those challenges.
Princeton Tigers make it clear. The challenges that face our communities will be addressed by the power of community. And now our community, together and from a multidisciplinary lens, is taking a look at the future.
Now, let's meet some of the forward thinkers in the field of science and engineering who will help drive our global conversation throughout the year, including an introduction to our new Dean of Engineering, Andrea Goldsmith.
I'm Andrea Goldsmith, the new Dean of Engineering and Applied Science at Princeton. I'm very excited to join Princeton at this time of innovation and entrepreneurship and forward thinking for the School of Engineering and Applied Science. Leading Princeton School of Engineering and Applied Science at this pivotal time is very compelling to me, given our plans to grow the engineering faculty and students by up to 50%, which will allow us to engage in new areas of research and significantly increase our impact. I'm also very excited to lead the interdisciplinary initiatives in bioengineering, in data science, robotics, smart cities, and quantum computing. And I'm excited to lead these within a liberal arts university where we can take our advances in technology and use them in cross-disciplinary ways to really benefit humanity. Another key initiative of mine is to foster significantly more innovation, entrepreneurship, and partnerships with industry so that we can take the technology ideas we're developing in our research and get them out into products and into the hands of people. This will have significant impact not only on Princeton and the engineering that we do, but also on other universities, the tri-state region, and the world. I'm also committed to enhancing diversity and inclusion in the School of Engineering among our faculty and our students, because I truly believe that we need a diversity of ideas and perspectives in order to create technology that will solve the big challenges that society faces. I did not anticipate starting my position at Princeton in the midst of a global pandemic. And this pandemic has caused so much loss and disruption in the way we educate and do research, but also in the way we do business and socialize. And I'm hoping that we will take lessons from how we have managed to do everything online and change the way that we do our business and our education and our research, such that when we emerge from this moment in time, we will be able to do all those things better than we can today. In this year of forward thinking, I'm very excited about the many initiatives that are happening in the School of Engineering and Applied Science. For example, in the area of bioengineering, we're developing technologies to engineer cells, new medical technologies that can help with targeting particular symptoms of diseases, and also using data science to enhance precision medicine. In the area of energy and the environment, we're developing technologies that can track climate change and address it, as well as develop more robust and efficient energy systems. And finally, more broadly in data science, we have the ability, because we are within a liberal arts university, to not only create these tools of data science, but use them in ways that can significantly benefit our society, for example, in areas of wealth inequality and systemic racism. What excites me most about research is that the journey is as exciting and fulfilling as the final destination. Creating new knowledge is challenging and exciting and stimulating, and I so look forward to leading creation of that new knowledge as the new Dean of Engineering and Applied Science.
Princeton is incredibly supportive of interdisciplinary research. Here we can ask the hardest questions.
And what we're doing is combining techniques from biology, computational sciences, and engineering to uncover how lungs build themselves in reptiles, birds, and mammals. And our hope is that by doing so, we'll increase the depth of the toolbox that we have available to us to engineer tissues. So that now, by combining approaches from different species, we'll be able to engineer more efficient lungs so that future generations can breathe more easily.
If you think about data science at Princeton, there are really three core strengths at Princeton that have a long history here. The first is laying theoretical foundations. The second is leveraging those techniques to accelerate discovery in a wide range of fields. And the third is impacting society.
A few years ago, there was a viral video of two friends using an automated soap dispenser, and the soap wouldn't come out with the individual with darker skin because darker skin absorbs light. So if it's infrared technology, it's not going to work as effectively. And so I use this kind of lower tech example to get us thinking about more complex systems like our criminal justice system, our healthcare system, education system, by calling attention to discriminatory design, that is the human decisions, assumptions, values that shape the process of tech development. We're able to, one, see the harm. We have a language to identify the harm, but the hope is not that we stop there. The hope is that by seeing the harm, we feel empowered, we feel motivated.
Humanity now faces a collection of environmental problems that are unprecedented in human history. We have a climate problem, and we have to double food production in the next 30 years.
My research group focuses on infrastructure and food provisioning systems that are essential for cities to thrive and to even exist. And the other thing that's super exciting is that our research group works very closely with city planners and policymakers. And so we have developed processes that help us take the science and the engineering design that we're doing in research and very quickly bring it to city plans.
The research that we do has a very clear connection to the world. We are committed to advance knowledge for knowledge's sake, because that is crucial. That's how we'll find new things. To also make that knowledge that we find useful to the world, to make it relevant. And what that has opened up is a possibility for new areas of research. And our undergraduates are doing real research. And we are trying to push the bounds of our knowledge together.
And so the question is, what is Princeton's responsibility to sort of help the public come up with a set of solutions that are in everyone's best interest.
We see these thinkers and are filled with curiosity and hope. But these forward thinkers cannot do it alone. It will take the voices of the entire Princeton community. So let's hear from you. Whether you are a newly minted student or a member of their family, a Bleeding Orange alum, a longtime Princeton supporter, or someone who's always been curious about this place with tigers in New Jersey, we want to hear from you.
So now we'd like to turn it to our audience. What ideas captivate you the most? What questions do you have for our forward thinkers? Let's hear from you on social media using #PrincetonForward or email us at forward@princeton.edu.
Again, when you engage with October's Forward Fest programming, you will be considering a range of topics such as social justice and election 2020 that remind us what is at stake for humanity at this time. In our next segment, we will meet some of the voices who will drive that conversation. First, we will hear from Monica Ponce de Leon, Dean of the School of Architecture. And then we will hear some of the key voices shaping our global dialogue around the humanities and American studies.
Hi, I'm Monica Ponce de Leon, Dean of the School of Architecture, and I came to Princeton because at Princeton, in service of humanity is more than just a slogan. So architects occupy a unique position within society. We get to anticipate the needs, the desires of a community, but we also get to show how change is possible. When we build a building, we imagine something that was not there. And as a result, we actually demonstrate that the status quo does not need to be. So as an architect, we very much have the responsibility of working with communities at large as a way of creating better built environments. Currently, we are in a really challenging moment. On the one hand, we are asked to social distance and stay apart, which actually changes the way that we think about public space. But at the same time, we really are called to action. And action is actually in contradiction with, again, the requirement to stay apart. So we really need to reimagine how the role that public space plays in our lives and how to stay safe while still making choices about what we want to do for society. At the School of Architecture, we have a team of faculty and students that are looking at this tension between social distancing and the need to use public space as a way of speaking out. And this team is actually doing a research project that is looking at this tension between these two ways of thinking about public space in today's moment. One of the extraordinary aspects of architecture is that it deals directly with what it means to be human. As humans, we occupy our environments, we come together in space, we use space as a way of showing our identities, demonstrating our beliefs, and architecture creates that framework for daily lives, whether it is as a private citizen or as a public citizen, whether it's for one individual or for many. One of my priorities at the School of Architecture has been to address the lack of diversity in the discipline. Architecture has historically been very male and very Caucasian, and I'm neither male nor Caucasian. So one of our commitments is to understand that architecture has to reflect the communities that we serve, and that we cannot do a good job if our own demographics do not reflect the demographics of the US at large. So we have worked very, very hard not only to be more inclusive towards students and faculty of different backgrounds, but also to look at our own curriculum and really make changes so that our curriculum reflects the interest of a broad range of groups. In the School of Architecture, we're also very committed to issues of sustainability. Buildings have one of the greatest impact on global warming. So how do we change the way that we construct buildings so that their impact on the environment can be minimized? I am personally very interested in the idea that we need to think of buildings in terms of their long lives. The most sustainable building is one that can actually last for a long, long time. So while we, of course, care about energy efficiency and buildings need to be energy efficient, we also need to make sure that they don't end up in landfill. So how do we design buildings for change? How do we design buildings that can easily adapt not only to the changing lives of their occupants, so that, for example, you might age in place in your house, but also the fact that occupants come and go, and different groups of people have different needs and different desires.
One of our missions and sort of fundamental core belief in American studies is that to understand the democratic process is a multidisciplinary project. Right? It's not just about political affiliation, it's about cultural understanding, it's about relationship and ethical relationship to others. And so we think about American studies as a place where we are teaching our students and ourselves what someone else has called, I love this phrase, the art of democracy.
You know, we were inspired quite a lot by the Princeton Slavery Project. So we're thinking about the relationship between enslaved and free African descended people in Princeton and the events of the revolution. We're thinking about indigenous communities and their relationship to the revolution. We're thinking about the voices of women, for instance. I mean, it's been amazing to encounter, to realize how narrow writing about the Revolutionary War is. You know, we're using technology, we're using computer science, we're drawing on the fields of history, the history of science, American studies, art history.
We are here today at the Princeton battlefield with a course called Battle Lab, whose goal is to investigate the Princeton battlefield.
Nathan said, hey, how about a class where we excavate something near campus? And he said, what about the Princeton battlefield? And I said, that's perfect. What if we bring the tools of our trade together to see if we can unlock the battles of Princeton, to bring new information, new knowledge, and make the picture of what really happened here that day more clear.
Having not taken a history class in quite a long time, I thought it'd be good to just learn more about the American Revolution, the start of this nation. But also alongside with that, I do enjoy the technical side of things too, and using technology like ground penetrating radar earlier, metal detectors here, and other tools in the excavation.
American Studies is a group of people that are interested in having those sorts of discipline-bending conversations, but it's also a space that can bring the strong disciplines together for collaboration and teaching and research. And our vision of America has changed from the beginning of when American Studies, or American civilization as it often was called, was conceived of as a field, as an interdisciplinary field. And a lot of that has to do with recognizing a more inclusive image of America.
Thinking forward is not only about addressing the challenges of tomorrow, it's also about pushing the boundaries in all disciplines, and music is no different. Maya Karen, class of 2022, has been heralded by Professor of Jazz Studies Rudresh Mahandapa as a rising star. Here with her is Jeffrey Gordon, class of 2022 as well, and her housemate. Together, they'll play for us her avant-garde composition, Plum Fist. A year of forward thinking and this Princeton Forward Fest are powered by voices. The more voices that are activated in this effort, the more powerful the effort will be. I haven't had a chance to ask my fellow hosts, so Bria, we've talked a lot about forward thinking on campus. What are you thinking forward?
Wow, that's such a good question. It's almost like, where do you begin? It feels like this is a year for us to really be thinking forward and being more bold and courageous with what we want to do with our reform efforts. I think personally for me, working in the criminal justice, social justice space, it's really more than doing just incremental change. So while I work in the field that's focusing on reducing disparities within the jail populations, it's more than just saying we're going to address disparities in the system. When you talk about addressing, it's sort of looking at the systemic and institutional racism and policies, laws, and so on and so forth that really have impacted communities of colors for generations, too many generations. So I think 2020 has really given that opportunity to think about, okay, we know we have a serious problem. We know we need to have much bigger reform efforts that take on a larger impact. And I think 2020 sort of has given us that space. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to not only talking with these amazing folks in the panel, but also just thinking about who else are we missing from the space? Who other voices do we need to make sure that we're being responsive to and integrating in all of these changes that we want to make going forward?
Celine, what about you?
Oh, Coco, sorry, this one just does not want to stay down. Can you stay down while I finish this? Okay.
Oh my gosh, your dog is so cute, Celine.
If there's anything we've learned from this pandemic is that science by itself is not what changes society. You need people armed with science advocating for the best interventions, for the best policies based on that science. And this is where an entire community really needs to get involved. It's not just about the scientists who are studying a problem.
So Ariel, I want to turn it back to you and ask you, what is the idea that you're forwarding?
For me, as someone who works in corporate America, predominantly advising boards and CEOs on corporate social responsibility, transformational change, business growth, my main focus right now is figuring out how to get the corporate sector to actually believe that diversity is a material and significant benefit to business and not in any way philanthropy or a do-good initiative. It's actually core to our success as a society and in the business sector. So that's all I've been focused on the past several months.
So let's hear your voice. What are you thinking forward? Go online to social media and use hashtag Princeton Forward to pose a question, a theory, a feeling, anything to share your view of the future with us.
So before we take our deep dives into a number of ideas in our Forward Fest programming, we want to welcome Provost Debbie Prentice to talk a little bit about some ideas that are bubbling up within our community.
Princeton is a place full of exciting, forward-thinking ideas. And honestly, if I had to choose just one or two, I'd have a very, very difficult time thinking in terms of the world-changing ideas. I think the two that I would pick right now would be fusion energy and quantum computing. These are two new technologies. Princeton is on the forefront of the development of both of these technologies, and they have the potential to change everything, right? To change our lives. An idea that I think is extremely important is how people are going to learn to live with climate change. And in the same vein, I think another important question is how we can overcome political divisions in our society. In my own discipline right now, which is psychology, by the way, right now, the critical, the big problem to solve is COVID-related behaviors, because COVID is really the mother of all behavioral problems. Many of the causes and virtually all of the current solutions, short of a vaccine, to the pandemic involve human behavior, involve getting people to do this and not do that. In terms of new ideas on the horizon, here at Princeton, one of the things we've begun to think about is how we might make a Princeton education available to a wider range of people, not just our traditional students, but push a Princeton education out and make it available to a much wider world. We have so much to offer here, and we'd really very much like the world to benefit from it.
As we close, we just want to leave you with an idea. It's that the ideas Provost Prentice just talked about cannot be fully realized without our supporting them, engaging with them, pulling them apart, and maximizing their impact on humanity. And that starts with our Forward Fest sessions. When you tune in, engage, explore. This programming is truly a unique opportunity to not only develop a relationship with these ideas, but also the forward thinkers themselves, up close and personal. It's also an opportunity to converge with members of the Princeton community, both familiar and new, centering that conversation around hope for humanity's challenges, and hope for us to come together in the service of humanity. We look forward to diving in with you again soon, and until then, don't stop your forward thinking.